In the last part of the tutorial, we will finish developing our library management application. If you haven't watched the previous parts of this tutorial, please do so now. In the part 5 of the tutorial, we have defined the use cases of the staff member users. The use cases of the library members are quite similar to some of the use cases of staff members, so we will not be implementing them in this tutorial. You can implement them yourself as a practical exercise. In this part of the tutorial, we will focus on the user interface instead and make our application look better and more professional. If you recall the guidelines from the first part of the tutorial, we recommended that you first focus on the model and functionality of the application before worrying about the user interface. We haven't paid too much attention to the user interface so far, but now that our application is functionally ready, we can focus our attention on some details of the user interface. So let's have a look at the user interface of our application so far and see what we can improve. So we log into the application using the browser, and the application immediately shows two lists: the list of library items and the list of members. Let's start from the top of the screen. We can save some real estate here if we get rid of the banner altogether and instead put a logo of the application right on the toolbar and move the items of the menu to the right of the toolbar. So let's do it. Let's go to the staff member visual perspective. And first of all, let's turn the banner frame off. Now I have a little logo image from the real library sample application, and we will put this image into the toolbar by adding a small HTML snippet. An HTML can be added to the toolbar menu by selecting the command of the text type. So let's add this command to the menu. So I select the text command and I paste the HTML snippet here. In order for this to work, we need to put the image itself into this folder. And I have already done that. Now let's just make sure that the next command is displayed to the right of the screen. So we will tick the Start Right Alignment property of the menu item. Let's see now how this works. So when we log in, this is what we see now. Note the new logo, and the buttons are now displayed on the right-hand side of the screen. Let's now change the text in this area here from the default name, Results for All Items, to something more user-friendly. For example, Library Items. This area is called Panel Header, and what we see now is the default implementation, which we can change or completely customize. To do this, we go to the Panel Header property of the query and specify the caption we want. Let's do the same for the members query. Let's see how this works. Now when we log in, we can see a different text. Note that we can completely get rid of the panel header and display the title instead of these buttons, while moving the buttons to the right-hand side of the screen. If we were to do this, we would edit the operation toolbar of the query, in very much the same way that we edited the toolbar of the visual perspective. But for now, let's leave it the way it is. Let's move further down. Let me borrow an item first, so that we can see both borrow and return buttons. Both buttons start a process, so by default they have the same icon. Let's assign different custom icons to them. Also, we can see that the buttons occupy too much space on the right. Let's replace all these buttons with a single button that pops up a menu of operations available for each record. Let's assign icons to operations first. If you have icon files, you can include these files directly. Or alternatively, you can use icons from a popular font Awesome or any other icon font. The advantages of using icon fonts is that you can display font icons in different colors and in different sizes. Font Awesome is included with the Where I Am automatically. Other icon fonts need to be set up explicitly, which is not that hard at all. Icons from any icon font need to be specified using CSS classes, and each font includes a so-called cheat sheet that contains images of all icons of the font with the corresponding classes. I picked a couple of icons from the font Awesome font for the borrow and return operations, so I will specify them here. So we go to the All Items query, then go to the operations with records, find the operations we need, and specify the CSS class of the icon we want. And for the return operation, let's now put all item operations on a single button. To do this, we just tick the Create Menu button for operation checkbox and specify how we're going to display the button for the pop-up menu. I will just include the word Actions and no icon. Let's see now how this works. So now, when we log in, we see just one button called Actions, and all our operations are now on a pop-up menu. Note the icons for the return and borrow operations. Let's now fix the widths of the columns. We can see that there is no need to display so much space for the available and code columns. We can also fix the width of the author column, as it is not going to be too long most of the time. And we will leave all the remaining space to the title column that can be quite long. We also don't need to say the word picture here, because it is obvious anyway. Similarly, we can fix widths of the membership number, name, and email address columns in the members query, and leave the remaining space to the address column. Let's do this. So we go to the display properties of the query, and allocate fixed widths for the code, author, available, and picture columns. I will also change the label of the picture to a hashtag. In the preview pane, we can see that the widths look reasonable. I will now do the same for the members query. Let's see now how this looks in the real browser. So we log in again and see that column widths look much better now. Let's now display entries for unavailable items with a red background color so that it is immediately obvious that the item is unavailable. To do this, we need to define item rules for the query. Let's open our query and go to the item display rules property of the query. And I will define a condition. If item is not available, then it will be displayed with this style. We will use the pink background color. Let's see how this looks. So when we log in now, we can see that the unavailable item is displayed with a pink background. Let's apply the final touch to our user interface and display the new icon with a green color and delete icon with a red color to make the screen look slightly more colorful. As I mentioned before, you can only change icon colors if you use font icons, and this requires a little bit of CSS knowledge, but not much at all. So I thought I would include this in the tutorial. You can watch the CSS tutorial in the advanced section for more details. So to manipulate colors, size and some other properties of the font icons, you need to define a CSS class describing the properties of the icons. All your CSS classes have to be placed into a CSS file, and this CSS file needs to be placed into this folder, where business space is the name of your business space, in this case library. I have already prepared a CSS file with two class definitions, one for the new icon and one for the delete icon. Here we just specify the colors, but we could also specify font size and opacity. Now we need to add these class definitions to the icons in Where I Am. So we open the All Items query, go to the panel Operations, find our operations, and add our classes to them. And for the delete operation, we add the delete icon class. And I will do the same for the members query. Okay, let's see how this looks. So now when we log in, we see some more colorful icons. Our application is now ready. Note that this is a very simple version of the library management application. Now that the core version of the application is ready, we can add more complexity to it. For example, allow members to reserve library items if they are not available yet, charge fees for overdue loans, manage online payments, and so on. For a more complex and realistic version of this application, please refer to the library sample application and the configuration case study document. By developing a simple version of the library application in this multi-part tutorial, we have just scratched the surface of what ORM can do. However, it should give you a pretty good idea of how to develop applications.